and welcome to the Daily Debate Live Thursdays with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International, leading the stories of the day. Macron loading ties with Egypt. French President Emmanuel Macron lauded the deepening diplomatic relations between Egypt and France as he welcomed President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in Paris. Macron stressed how Egypt was a vital partner in the fight against terrorism, as well as a key partner in the search for lasting political solutions in the Middle East, namely Libya and Syria. During the visit to France, the president held a number of meetings with the French foreign, defense and interior ministers as well, and also high-ranking officials and French businessmen. A number of agreements were signed, and the future of bilateral cooperation in different fields were tackled thoroughly. So that today will be recapping the fruit of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's current visit to Paris, to France, what would be expected in the next stage, and reading through the main headline. Always honored to have with us Dr. Sherif Shoubashy, a renowned journalist, intellectual and writer. Mr. Shoubashy, thank you so much for coming to the Daily Debate tonight. Always a pleasure and honor.
Thanks to you. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reading more in relations between Cairo and Paris right after this report. Will be back.
President Fattah el-Sisi discussed a variety of issues with French President Emmanuel Macron during a meeting at the Élysée Palace in Paris on Tuesday, in particular regional and international efforts to combat terrorism. In a press conference held after the meeting, the Egyptian president also stated that he and Macron discussed the latest developments concerning Middle East peace process after the recent political reconciliation which Egypt hosted in Cairo. The pair further discussed the situations in Libya and the wider Arab region. President el-Sisi said they discussed the situation in Syria and Iraq, as well as the Sahel and Sahara region in Africa. They also exchanged views about how to deal with illegal immigration, in addition to discussing relations between Egypt and the European Union. During the press conference, an Egyptian journalist asked President Macron if there was an agreement or partnership between France and Egypt in fight against terrorism. The French president stated that there was a strategic partnership between Egypt and France in fighting terrorism, and that France was fully supporting Egypt in its war against extremist violence. Macron expressed hope to work in a balanced way to end terrorism as well as conflicts, especially in Syria and Libya, stressing on the necessity of working together to face terrorist movements. Macron also said that France would cooperate with Egypt on a diplomatic level concerning the ongoing civil war in Syria. Pressed by a French journalist about human rights situation in Egypt, the French president said that his government fully understands the difficult situation in Egypt and that there are ongoing concerns about stability. Macron also added that he and his government believe that they should not interfere in other countries' affairs. I believe in sovereignty, he said. We are in no position to tell Egypt what to do. Nonetheless, he revealed that he had addressed certain specific human rights cases with President Sisi in their decision. On his part, the President Fattah el-Sisi stated that the Egyptian government respects human rights and over 40,000 NGOs currently operating in Egypt. The Egyptian president also added that we should not neglect human rights of the families of martyrs who died in the war of terrorism, suggesting that terrorism is a great threat to human rights. He said that we do not run from questions about human rights, but we are not Europe, noting that the country is facing violent extremism that wants to impose itself and warning against listening to false information.
Mr. Shoubashy, a very significant meeting between both leaders, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and President Emmanuel Macron. The third visit by the president, but it's the first meeting as Macron became the French president. So how do you see the meeting, the impressions, the outcome? Definitely a very warm welcome for President el-Sisi as he arrived in Paris, as we saw.
Definitely. The first two visits, we should remind the spectators, were with President François Hollande.
right,
who had a different vision of Egypt, of the Middle East, and of Syria. We're going probably to talk about all that. He had a different strategy and a different vision. Now, Macron, I would like to tell you that I had the privilege to go to Paris in 1975 for the first visit of an Egyptian president to France. The first ever visit, official visit of an Egyptian president. It was Anwar al-Sadat, went to Paris on the 27th of January, I remember the day, 1975.
Very memorable, definitely,
And he was starting a shift between relying on Soviet Union and on the East, and he was starting to rely and to have better relations with the West. This was his policy until he passed away, and it was Mubarak's policy, by the way, also. So what was the main topic, main issue at that time? It was the Middle East problem. It was the Israeli-Palestinian
question,
or confrontation or problem. And it was really obnubilating all other problems.
Was overwhelming, was the main agenda.
It was the main, the first, the second, and the third. Now the situation is completely different. Now you tell me that, of course, Macron made a warm welcome to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi because of what he represents and because of what Egypt represents. Now that the priorities have changed. It is not anymore the Middle East problem that is prevailing, but terrorism.
Right, and a sense of coordination in order to combat terrorism, a phenomenon that is racking the whole world.
That's correct. And they understood, Hollande didn't understand that. Macron understood that Egypt is the key to combat terrorism in the area.
Right.
And mainly in Libya. You know that Daesh had control over a lot of territories in Syria and in Mosul, and many strongholds. They have lost them one after the other. The last one was Raqqa, last month.
Right.
This is supposed to be good news, right? This is supposed to be, I mean, rejoicing news.
And giving new impetus in the fight.
For Macron, they are not. You know why? Because the terrorists who were working with Daesh in Syria and in Iraq, and there are at least 400 French people, French nationalities, French passport, who were with Daesh during this, until now. So these people, where do you think they will go? They will probably go to Libya first, and then to France. And they are potential bombs for Macron.
Potential explosives.
Yes, because these people are going to commit suicide attacks, and there will be much more terrorism inside France.
Headache. They represent a headache. Yeah, definitely.
More than a headache.
And more than a headache.
A threat. It's a real threat.
Yeah.
And Macron doesn't want that, and this is why he's trying to deal with Egypt mainly, because Egypt is the real country who can control the situation in the area.
Yeah, controlling the situation in the area, what does it take? As you've said, Mr. Shoubashy, that definitely, even since President Sadat's visit, it has been the peace process in the forefront. Now we do have other important issues like Libya for Egypt is a matter of national security, and also solving...
For France too.
For France too, and solving the Syrian crisis. They know quite well that Egypt, with a sense of strategic partnership, is key to solving those issues.
Definitely. But this is why Macron is so interested and so keen to have such relations with Egypt. And Egypt, on its part, understands that it must have good relations with Europe. And the two main countries in Europe are Germany, as you know, economically, and France, politically. Holland's policy, for example, or strategy in Syria, the main idea of François Hollande was that the Assad regime must fall. This was his top priority, and he said it several times, because I watch French television every day.
Right.
And he was saying all the time, my priority is to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. This is not the policy of Macron. Macron changed this policy. No, we must have stability in Syria. We must help the people to choose their leaders and to choose their government. Maybe Assad won't have any future in Syria, but this is not my main problem. This is the problem of the Syrian people.
Yeah.
So the Egyptian and the French standpoints are getting closer now with Macron than with François Hollande.
Right. So since they're getting closer, so it's different from his policies are different from his predecessor. And what would be the components of Macron's policy as you see it in your vision?
The main, if you talk about components, you should think about his priorities. What does he want from the area? What he wants from the area, apart, of course, from commercial ties, selling...
opening new markets.
Opening new markets, new business, promoting the francophonie, which is very important for the French people, as you know.
Right.
Their language is extremely important for them. But apart from all that, his actual priority is stability in the area. And as you know, the only country in the area who has real stability is Egypt.
Egypt, definitely the cornerstone with all the potential and with the vision as well.
So this is why he knows that to get stability, he must come through Egypt. Though I would like to tell you, that as a reminding that the first contact between Egypt and France was catastrophic. It was a bloody contact, and it was a rude contact during the Fourth Crusade, led by King Louis IX, Saint Louis, as they call him in France.
Yeah.
And he came to Egypt, and by the way, he was arrested and he was imprisoned in Damietta.
Yeah, that's history.
It was the first contact between Egypt and France. But ever since, the relations have evolved. We had also difficult times in 1956, when the French army tried to invade Egypt, and they gave not only weapons to Israel, they gave the atomic bomb to Israel, the Dimona atomic setting. But now I can say that the relations are at their zenith, their peak.
At their peak.
Very good relations.
On the strategic level and on the business level too, we have seen the president also meeting with the representatives of the different French companies. We're talking about cooperation in business, cooperation in energy as well. Earlier in the day, the president met also with the Minister of Interior, the French Minister of Interior. So we're talking about collaboration in this file concerning combating terrorism. How about being close to the French circles, Mr. Shoubashy? What would be the potential that they would like? What sort of doors in Egypt that they would like to knock? What would be the unconventional fields that they would love to invest in, for instance?
I think that one of the main strengths of France is high tech, high technology. Now, you know what the future is? The future is in AI. AI is artificial intelligence, and France is really good at artificial intelligence. I think that, you know how many companies there are, French companies there are in France? 160. And there are 30,000 Egyptian people who are working in these companies. So it's a good...
very good percentage.
It's good, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
You need to do more.
I am sure that President Sisi told that to Macron. This is not enough. We need more, not only on the quantitative level, but also on the qualitative level. AI, artificial intelligence, will be the future. So we would like to get into this technology through France, of course through other countries too, but through France, which is spearheading the momentum in this field.
Yeah. Different areas of cooperation. We've seen also the parliamentary relations that appeared also high during the visit. Parliamentary relations are important, and they also reflect on people-to-people relations as well.
Of course, the relation is not only political. Do you know that the French president is not allowed to go to the parliament? He is the only French citizen who is not allowed
to go to the parliament.
He is not allowed to enter the parliament. As long as he is president, he is not allowed to enter in the parliament. This is a very
important note here.
Yes, yes. So our president went to their parliament, and as you said, the relationship should not only be on high political level, but also on human level, people's level, social society level, civil society level. This is extreme. These are the real
the soft power tools.
This is the soft power.
Yeah, the soft power tools that we really need, and this is actually a very important matter of strength. I mean, we can read you through your books, Mr. Shoubashy. If you need to read the other, it's through the way and a sense of understanding and a way to people's minds and hearts. So if we talk about the French people, how to reach their minds and hearts, in your opinion, through our drama, through our opera, through our soft power, utilizing Egypt's soft power, we reach them more?
The French people are very open to cultures, to different cultures. And you wouldn't believe that Kulthum is extremely famous in France. I mean, if you say Kulthum in France, 90% of the people would know who Kulthum is.
Yeah.
Apart
from the lyrics, understanding the lyrics, but the music and the rhythm.
Yes.
And the beat.
Which is not the case in Germany or in Great Britain. You would find 20% of the people who would tell you, yes, she is the diva of Egypt. But in France, 90%, I've made tests when I was there. 90% of the people know her. So French are open to exotic, if you could say, cultures. And I remember when Naguib Mahfouz took the Nobel Prize in literature, people in France were so keen, and when I used to go to libraries, I remember people going and saying, Naguib Mahfouz, we want the books of Naguib Mahfouz. We want the books of, I was so pleased and so happy. Ordinary French citizens. French are very
civilized and very cultured
yes, people. Yes, very cultured, and this is a very good way to get through the French society. Cinema, of course.
Of course.
I hope our cinema will improve, we will make more. You know that there are some Egyptian movies who had some success during the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Among which the movie called, I don't remember the name of the movie exactly, but it was about women's harassment. It was called, I think, 678 or something like that, with Bushra and Nelly Karim.
Yeah.
It was a very movie, and it was shown in the Champs-Élysées itself, in the best movie theaters in France.
Yeah, and concerning the rhythms, also many megastars definitely hold performances in France, and they had a very good feedback. Talking back politics and the sense of coordination between Egypt and France, if we talk about the Middle East peace process, still since Sadat's visit, but still the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is definitely there on the agenda in meetings, not only among statesmen, but also in preparation for the different visits. So seeing eye to eye on that important file is also very important.
Definitely. As I told you, I had the privilege to go in 1975 for the first official visit of an Egyptian president, and ever since I followed all the visits, by the way.
Right.
I followed practically all the visits. And I can tell you that the Palestinian issue was at the core of the discussions and of the interest between the presidents and of course the ministers and the officials, because even if now terrorism has taken
overwhelmingly role due to the need to combat this phenomenon,
the urgent need to combat this phenomenon, but the Palestinian question remains at the heart of. As long as you don't solve the Palestinian problems, you will not have real stability in the Middle East.
Definitely. And this time the president's visit to France coincides with the Egyptian achievement in the sense of Palestine reconciliation. So definitely they can see the potential of what Egypt offers in solutions.
That's correct. And this was mentioned a lot by the French
circles,
the French newspaper press and newspapers and television.
Yeah, following the French television daily and the French newspapers, what were the main headlines that came during the president's visit? What were more concerning, interesting stories that the French are interested to know more about in the Egyptian-French relations?
You know, around 2 weeks or 10 days before the visit, the main topic was human rights in Egypt. And there was really a lot of critiques. And I think, because I've been working in journalism and media for the last 45 years. So that's a long time. It's long enough to understand something.
Repercussions and read.
No. Yes, what pushes this? I mean, it is not normal. It was not normal because all the newspapers were saying approximately the same thing. I have a firm belief. Maybe I'm wrong. I have a firm belief that there is someone behind that, and I suspect that there is a country which doesn't like Egypt, a country that tried to be the head of UNESCO, a country that is buying a lot of things in France, among which the Paris Saint-Germain, the famous club of Paris Saint-Germain, and this country has probably played a role. I don't say that this is the only reason, but this was a catalyst for this campaign against Egypt.
Yeah, the French president even said it, that France is not entitled to tell Egypt what it should do.
That's what I'm going to say. The French president put an end by this. He stood firmly and he said, we don't have lessons. We can't give lessons to, we can't lecture other countries. We don't want other countries to lecture us, and we are not going to lecture other countries. So I think now, since that statement,
since that
clarification or statement, I think that it has stopped.
Yeah, the president was clear also in clarifying different angles concerning that file, and this has been reflected when it comes to human rights. We're not evading an answer, but I hope that we understand in its true context of a country in Egypt's situation, that the Egyptian situation is definitely different from what is happening in Europe. And it's intellectual with its cultural and also human advancement. So it's a totally different region. Do they really understand in Europe that aspect?
Listen, I had a lot of discussions with people there. Usually, no, they refuse this logic. They would say human rights are human rights everywhere. But now that they have tasted
terrorism
and bloodshed, French people dying in front of them, being shot in front of them, and the bus killing people in Nice, as you know. Now they are rethinking. And I think that Macron was reflecting this new trend, that yes, we are all from human rights, definitely. I would hate someone to go to prison without crime or without a reason, or only because he said his opinion. I personally would hate that. But also, you should take into account the context and the imperatives of security and of stability, and you should understand that there are countries and there are people and there are forces that want Egypt to be destabilized.
Definitely, and those evil forces are actually clear to everybody, I guess, from actions. Actions speak louder than words. Well, we're still opening the important file of the president's visit to France, more than one angle discussing business, not only business, but also discussing people-to-people relations. We talked about the cultural file. We'll be talking more concerning also tourism and how to bring the French tourists, more French tourists to Egypt. Let's watch this report and we'll be back.
French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed on Tuesday Egyptian President Fattah al-Sisi, saying that his schedule in Paris is intensive as he's scheduled to meet with so many ministers. The French President announced that a French economic delegation will be sent to Egypt in the beginning of 2018, especially to certain economic zones such as the one within the Suez Canal access for the excellent economic opportunities available there. President Sisi also announced that he and his French counterpart attended the signing of 16 memoranda of understanding in the fields of renewable and traditional energy infrastructure, social security and transportation. The president said that he and Macron agreed to declare 2019 as the year of the Egyptian French culture and that he personally invited Macron to visit Egypt. France would also cooperate in sectors it is experienced in, such as metro lines and renewable energy. President Fattah al-Sisi said that Egypt and France signed deals and memoranda of understanding worth 400 million euros in different economic and cultural sectors, as this year coincides with the 150th anniversary of Suez Canal. He added that we held talks tackling Egypt's economic reform programs and the social security network it is implementing. Macron said that the Suez Canal is currently a place where there are great opportunities, and he reminded of the historic relations between the two countries. President Sisi received on Tuesday the chairperson of France's national state-owned railway company, Guillaume Pepi, in Paris, and discussed Egypt's efforts to develop railway system in the country, including plans by the Ministry of Transportation to upgrade the signal and operation systems to the railway companies. Also, President Sisi and Pepi discussed Egypt's investment in enhancing human and electronic capacity at the National Railways Authority. Egypt and France signed cultural cooperation agreements in the presence of President Sisi and Macron at Élysée Palace in Paris. President Sisi also visited Tuesday the Musée de l'Armée, or Army Museum, at Les Invalides as part of his 3-day visit program in Paris. Sisi's visit to France topped the headlines of various French national media platforms. Their visit is the third since Sisi took office in 2014 and the first since Macron took office. France Info television channel reported on its website that the Egyptian-French bilateral relations witnessed momentum during the past years, especially on issues of common concern like Libyan, Palestinian issues, as well as security and military cooperation. The television channel added that the latest deal of 12 Rafale fighter jets is a great example of the strong relationship between the two countries. French newspaper Libération pointed out that Sisi would meet his French counterpart for the first time, as well as with several investors and businessmen. The newspaper added that President Sisi will also meet with French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian, who leads the French-Egyptian military cooperation deals. France 24 television channel relations between the two countries as distinguished, especially since President Sisi took office in 2014. France 24 explained that the two countries share the position towards several issues, including Libyan counter-terrorism. Macron was elected in May 2017.
We're talking more concerning a sense of partnership and cooperation between Egypt and France. Mr. Shoubashy, if we talk more about the cultural field, and I guess also visitors for the Egyptian Museum, for instance, when they come here, French tourists, they go back with memories. Those memories are an ambassador and a key to the hearts of the French as well. We hear from one time to the other concerning exhibits and those sorts of events or cultural events organized on the sidelines. How far does it help in boosting relations on different other levels?
Of course, it helps a lot. I remember that I I was in Paris when there was the very famous Tanis exhibition. It was in the 90s, mid-90s, 94, 90, 93, 94.
Yeah.
People were standing in a queue. You wouldn't believe the queue. You wouldn't see the end of the queue. And no, people, you know, French tourists who are unfortunately not as many as they used to be, and I hope that they will come back.
Yeah.
They were coming mainly because of culture, because of science, because of
history, Egypt's
because
history.
of history, and they are very serious tourists, by the way, too serious. I remember once I was in a boat between Luxor and Aswan, and I was the only Egyptian. It was a French group of nearly 40 people, and we started to talk together, have lunch and dinner together.
Yes.
And then the following day, in the morning, I heard them screaming, "Mr. Shoubashy, Mr. Shoubashy." I went on the deck, "What's wrong?" They told me, "There is a bird here." "What's the name of this bird?"
Okay.
Of course, for me, this is not in our culture. I told them, "This is a bird. It can fly, by the way." They told me, "No, we know." They had a book with all the birds in it, and they told me, "We're looking for this bird. It doesn't exist. What is this bird?"
Or maybe because they know that in certain areas they are looking for certain species. So
they are looking for. They had this book about birds in Egypt. I don't know what this bird is.
How
was an immigrant bird.
They are.
A few hours later, I'm not joking. No, they called me again. "This tree. What is this tree? We can't find it here." I told them, "This is a tree."